Hello, and welcome to Sunchaser. My name is Avinal, and Sunchaser is my project where I try to chase that which makes us wiser, healthier, and wealthier. Today we are talking about Grit by Angela Duckworth. Right off the bat, I should tell you that I gave this book the Masterpiece Badge because it satisfied all the five value sets of Sunchaser. I absolutely enjoyed reading this book. I think you will too. It is definitely quite insightful in what it has to reveal about grit, self control, and performance. The basic premise of the book is that even if you do not consider yourself very talented, you can make up the difference through hard work. Before moving on to the lessons from the book, let's learn a little bit about the author. Angela Duckworth, PhD, is a renowned psychologist, and in 2013, she became a MacArthur Fellow. That is also known as the Genius Award. She's a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, where she studies the role of grit and self control in success. Now, let's move on to the lessons from the book. And the first lesson that Dr. Duckworth wants us to take home is that we need to rethink the story around talent. She calls this the naturalness bias, which means that we, as general public, tend to value talent a lot more. We have a hidden preference for talent. We think that the people who are capable of doing incredible feats, whether in business or sport or arts or science, in any field, we think that they are capable of doing that because they are naturally talented. And it is interesting to think why. Why are we so enamored by talent while discounting the value of hard work? Why do we have a hard time accepting that displays of exceptional performance in music, sports, business, science, and so forth are just a byproduct of common hard work consistently executed over a long time? And German philosopher Nietzsche has something that can help us over here. His theory says that by aggrandizing talent, we protect our self worth, our ego. Because if talent is something God given and not man made, then you're off the hook, right? Anything wrong or suboptimal in your life, or anything good or superior in someone else's life, if you believe in talent being God given, you can chalk all of that up to God given talent, right? You can just say, hey, I'm not talented enough. I am not good enough. That other person, they got this God given talent. And in that way, you protect your ego. Dr. Duckworth's Grit, the book, right off the bat, it challenges us to rethink the story. The idea that exceptional performance is merely the result of commonplace hard work consistently executed over a long time, it is both liberating and intimidating. Basically, Dr. Duckworth is passing the ball back to us, and she's asking us to consider that greatness is accessible. It is accessible by you, and not just the chosen few who you see in TV or who you read about in newspapers. Greatness is accessible by you. Now, the second lesson from the book is how Dr. Duckworth sees the journey from merely having talent to actually achieving something. And over here, she puts down two equations. Basically, what she's saying is that talent into effort is equal to skill. So that means you are given some talent, innate talent, and that you put effort on to grow, that becomes your skill. And then the second equation over here says that the skill gets multiplied by effort another time, a second time, to get to achievement. So these two equations, if we consider them, we get to see a few things. The first thing you get to see is obviously that you do need some baseline level of talent to get to achievement. This is where luck comes in. If you are naturally not talented at something, for example, if you are short in height and you want to play basketball and you're only 4 feet tall, that is bad luck on the talent side because your baseline talent is putting you in a disadvantageous position. So that's the first thing we can see from these equations. The second thing, though, that we can see from these equations is that effort compounds on itself, whereas talent does not. This means that you can accelerate your journey towards achievement by putting in more effort, and it will compound on itself in the sense that 10% more effort is not going to mean just 10% more achievement. It's actually going to mean 21% more achievement because you see, the effort is compounding on itself. Another important thing is that grit is greater than hard work. Grit is hard work plus something else, and that something else is focused perseverance. Your interests cannot be changing if grit is to work. You need to be persevering, but in one chosen field that you want to persevere in. And this is also where passion becomes very important, because if you are not passionate about what you're choosing to persevere in, then eventually burnout will set in and you will find it difficult to continue. Which brings us to our next lesson, which is about viewing passion as a compass. Dr. Duckworth wants us to see our passion as a compass and not like a flash of inspiration. That is, it should not be that today you're passionate about X and next year you're passionate about a completely different thing, Y. That is not how it is supposed to work. Passion is supposed to be like a compass. Now, it takes time to understand how a compass works, how you read it. Similarly, you have to take time to understand how to find your passion. But once you know what your passion is, just like a compass, it can direct you in the direction you should be going to achieve your long-term goals, to achieve the goals that you really care about. Now, you do not need to follow a compass exactly, right? For example, if the compass is pointing you towards a brick wall, naturally you will find a way around it. You have to take relevant detours. What matters is that you stay true to the compass over the long haul. Similarly, you need not dedicate yourself to your passion all day long, 7 days a week without a break. You're free to live life, you're free to tend to other responsibilities. But what matters is over the years, and as the years turn into decades, you should be coming back to your passion and consistently putting effort in that direction. As Dr. Duckworth points out to us, what matters most is consistency over the long term instead of intensity in the short term when it comes to passion. All right, now let's talk about how do you grow grit. All of us are interested in getting grittier. Well, this is how you do it. Dr. Duckworth talks about two ways to approach this. First is inside out, and the second is outside in. Let's talk about the both of them, starting with the inside out approach. And the first thing you have to do in the inside out approach is to have interest in the craft. Like I said before, if you're not passionate about the thing, you will not stick with it over the long term. And sticking with something over the long term is an essential requirement for grit. Being interested in what you're doing has the double benefit of you being happier while doing it, obviously, but also you tend to do it better. If you're interested in something, your performance versus someone who is not interested in it is better. So that also is obvious, but it's good to know that having interest in something has these benefits. Now, how do you go about discovering interest? Well, the way to do it is through action. You cannot think your way into the most appropriate or the most life defining interest for you. You have to act. Most importantly, you have to experiment. This works especially well for children, but even for adults, it should work. A period of semi random experimentation. Why semi random? Because you are free to give some direction to your experimentation basis the interests and proclivities you already know about yourself, such as I'm interested in acquiring knowledge, I like reading books, I like talking about books, and therefore I thought to myself, my interest will probably lie in content creation, right? It's not completely random, but once I have chosen the content creation field, then I can think about, all right, now what is the arena that is best suited for me? Is it just the written word? Is it podcasting? Is it YouTube or video? What is it? That is where the experimentation part comes back in. Basically, what you're saying is you need to experiment for some time to understand what your interest is. And if you're doing it right, the way it will work is that you will initially have a period where you're experimenting widely and you're trying out so many things, but over time, some of them will naturally fall off. You'll naturally become less interested in them, and some of them will stick. The ones that stick are the things that you are interested in. They are the candidates to becoming your passion. Finding one's passion is actually fairly long term in how much time it takes, and it's a little difficult as well sometimes. You may want to check out the review I did of Stephen Kotler's The Art of Impossible, where he goes into much more detail on how one can find their passion and convert it into what he calls their massively transformative purpose. Anyway, continuing with the lessons Just to recap, the first thing that you need to grow grit is interest in the craft. You must be interested in the thing that you are doing. The second thing that you need is deliberate, result-oriented practice. This is important because this is not just practice. It is result-oriented practice. What we mean by that is it has the following additional characteristics. The first is that it is a clearly defined stretch goal that you're going after, which means that when you are practicing, which will enhance your grit, obviously. So when you're practicing to enhance your grit, you're doing it to achieve a stretch goal. A stretch goal, by its definition, is uncomfortable. So you're going outside of your comfort zone and trying to achieve whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. So the first requirement of a deliberate, result-oriented practice is a clearly defined stretch goal. The second requirement is immediate and relevant feedback. This is where coaches and mentors become very important, because you can be practicing on your own. For example, if you're in the gym, you may be stretching yourself, you may be lifting very heavy, but if there is no immediate feedback in terms of a trainer to tell you what you're doing right and what you're not doing right, it won't be as effective. So the second thing is immediate and relevant feedback. Number three is undivided attention and focus. Obviously, you need to be completely focused in whatever it is that you are doing. And number four is time for reflection and repetition. So when you are done with your hard task, your stretch goal, whether you achieved it or not, it doesn't matter as long as you are repeating it the next time, but with reflections and an understanding of what went right and what went wrong in the previous try so that you can improve this time around. These are the four requirements of having deliberate, result-oriented practice. Just to recap, a clearly defined stretch goal, immediate and relevant feedback, undivided focus and attention, and time for reflection and repetition. Duckworth also recommends two more things. The first thing is to make it a habit. That is, when deliberate, result-oriented practice is a habit, is included in your routine, in your rituals, you know you're going to do it, your family knows you're going to do it, so they're not going to disturb you, your friends know that you're going to do it, they're not going to disturb you either, then that is actually a superpower, because now you don't have to think about including practice in your daily schedule. You already have it included day after day, and all you have to do is show up and try hard. And the second thing she recommends is embrace the suck, which is a military expression. And I don't think she uses this specific expression. I am using it right now, but the idea is the same. It basically means you have to fall in love with the pain. Growth is hard, growth is uncomfortable, there's going to be a lot of failures, there's going to be scars and calluses. You have to start loving it in the sense that you have to know that whatever that pain is, that is growing you. This is interesting to think about, right? We don't think about it in this way, but pleasure is what we want, but it does nothing to us. It does not help us grow. Pain is what we avoid, but that's the thing that actually gets us growth, at least the deliberate practice one. So that's the second thing that she recommends. Make it a habit and embrace the suck. All right, we are at number 3 of how do you grow grit from the inside out. And that is to see your work as your purpose. So passion is what you are interested in. Purpose is a desire to help others with a belief that you can actually make a difference in their life. And grit requires both. It requires passion, but it also requires purpose. In fact, purpose makes the suck worth it, if I was to connect it to the previous point. Because when you see your work as impacting many people beyond you, bigger than you, outside of you, if what you're doing is something that is beyond you as an individual, it makes the tough times a little easier to endure. And the key word over here is see. Because it does not matter what the objective reality of your circumstance is. If you're able to see, if you're able to believe that what you're doing is actually good work, that it makes a difference to the lives of the others, that is powerful. As Dr. Duckworth says, and I'm quoting here, how you see your work is more important than your job title. Realize that you need to play an active role. Again, I think I should repeat this. Both passion and purpose are needed for grit. You cannot just be selfishly interested in the work, that is the passion part of it, but do not care about how it impacts others, nor can you be completely selfless and focusing how you can improve the lives of others without being interested in the work at all. it requires both to be sustainable. Grit requires both passion and a purpose to be sustainable. All right, moving on to number four. The fourth thing that helps increase grit from the inside out is what Dr. Duckworth calls hope. Although what I call it is belief. Belief that you can grow. As you will know, this is basically talking about the growth mindset popularized by Dr. Carol Dweck. Here, I'm quoting from the book. When you keep searching for ways to change your situation for the better, you stand a chance of finding them. When you stop searching, assuming they cannot be found, you guarantee that they won't. So you see, growth mindset, or mindset really, impacts whether we are actually able to grow grit or not. If you believe that you can change, you can grow into a grittier version of yourself, then you actually stand a chance of doing it. But if you do not believe in it at all, if you believe in the fixed mindset, that is, your talent and your capabilities are fixed, they cannot really change, then you pretty much guarantee that you will never increase your grit. Dr. Duckworth also points out at this point the importance of getting back up. She says that grit is not only just about hard work, like I said before, it is the belief, it is the hope that you can get back up and next time around it'll be different. That is the difference between people who are gritty and the people who have less grit. That is, they have hope that they can get back up. And number two, that when they get back up, next time around, it'll be different. Unsurprisingly, not coincidentally, the first Sun card was exactly on the point that Dr. Duckworth is talking about. Okay, now moving on to what grows grit from the outside in. The first thing is being the right parent. Duckworth uses the word parent in a broader sense, more than just the parent of a child. She talks about how we are parents to other young people or even other people in our lives all the time, such as when you're a teacher, you are sort of the parent, the leader to the class that you're teaching. If you're a coach, you are the parent, the leader to the team. If you are a boss, again, you become the leader, you become the parent for the team that you're handling. Duckworth wants us to think about parenting in such a broad way. And then what she says is that the right way to build grit is something called wise parenting. She reveals a 2x2 matrix at this time where on the x-axis you have the demand that you place on someone, whether you are more demanding or you're less demanding. And on the y-axis, you have how much support you're giving them. If you are giving them less support or you're giving them more support. So this naturally divides the field into four quadrants. And if you think about it, the place where you're getting both high demand but also high support is the place where children are expected, or like I said before, not just children, anyone that you're leading is expected to develop grit. Why is that? That is because you are expecting work from them. You're not taking no for an answer. You expect certain levels of performance. That is, you expect at least a B plus on all tests, or you expect all reports to be submitted on time, or you expect everyone to run a kilometer in 6 minutes and 30 seconds, whatever. You have a baseline level of performance that the team, that the class, that your child knows you expect from them, and you're not going to take anything less. So that is the strict part, the demanding part of parenting. Parenting in the context that Duckworth is talking about. But at the same time, you're also lending them high support. Whenever they are falling, whenever they are failing, you're telling them how they could have done it better. You're telling them where they can improve next time around. So in this way, whoever you're leading, a child or a team or a class, they get the signal that you as a leader expect certain levels of performance. And those performance levels need not just be outwardly. They can also be inward performance levels, such as you expect a certain level of discipline, a certain level of hygiene. You expect everyone to get up at 5:30. You expect no one to be late, right? So you're expecting performance. And at the same time, you're providing support to your team, to the child, to maintain those level of performance. That is what Duckworth calls wise parenting. And I'm going to quote here. Children of psychologically wise parents fare better than children raised in any other kind of household. So wise parenting leads to a child to emulate their parents instead of just imitating them. Now, all of us imitate our parents, our leaders all the time. That is evolutionary in a lot of respects. But imitation is about when a child or any person simply copies a leader's or a parent's actions, words, or behaviors without really thinking about the deeper meaning behind them. But what wise parenting does is that it makes the child emulate the parent, which means they understand much deeper why the parent does and asks and demands whatever they do. In this way, emulation reflects admiration and a conscious effort to embody the qualities that they respect in the parent. And wise parenting helps you get that. So that's the first way to develop grit from the outside in, be a wise parent. The next thing in growing grit from the outside in is doing hard things and sticking with them. Over here, Duckworth is basically talking about follow through. So, what do we see here? Follow through both demands grit, but also builds it at the same time. This is also related to the concept of learned industriousness that is also mentioned in the book. Again, the idea is the same, that by doing hard things, you develop the capacity to do hard things. Now, if you are trying to build grit in yourself, there is your answer. Go and do hard things. Stick with them. Like I said before, do not change track from time to time. Do not change interests every year. Pick something, stick with it over the long term, through the thick and thin, and stretch yourself. Do those hard things consistently. In doing that, not only will you build your skill, but you'll also build grit at the same time. So doing hard things increases the capacity to do hard things. It's like going to the gym and training your muscles. The more you lift, the more you can lift. It's like that. Now, if you are someone who is trying to build grit in young people, Duckworth recommends that you get that young person, whether that's a child or someone you care about, enrolled in extracurricular activities outside of school for at least 1 year. The reason she mentions the 1 year part is because it's a good proxy for a season, an entire season. So it will show the child the ups and downs of going through the practice, the deliberate effort. So a 1 year period is recommended, therefore. And initially in one's life, you may have them enroll in several extracurricular activities. And this is the time of exploration. We've already covered this previously. But as the child grows up, as they try more activities, they tend to gravitate towards certain specific activities that they like. This is the time of exploitation. So from exploring a wide range of activities, they should then start coming down and shortening the list as they grow older, as they become an adolescent, as a young adult. They should be trimming that list and thinking about just a few or maybe just one activity, one interest, one passion that they want to dedicate their time in. But it all starts with the child first being exposed to extracurricular activities, a variety of interests, and the child being told and being motivated, demanded, and supported to stick with it for at least 1 year. That is what Duckworth recommends. Finally, what you can do to develop grit from the outside in is simply join a gritty culture. Like I've written on Sunchaser.life, culture is such a powerful tool that people don't really make use of fully because we are evolutionarily hardwired to conform to our culture. If you're living in a culture that embodies high performance, you will embody high performance. If you're living in a culture that glorifies money, you will tend to glorify money. If you live in a culture that is scared and anxious all the time, or that wants you to be another brick in the wall, don't take any risks, don't ruffle any feathers, you will find yourself becoming like that. So culture is actually a highway of sorts. That's how I like to think about it. It's a highway to developing whatever character trait you want to develop, and grit is no different. You can become a grittier person by joining a grittier. Also important to mention that places with especially gritty culture have some sort of entry barrier, right? So whether that's the top schools, whether that's the army, whether that's the sports team that you're thinking about, whether that's the scientific group or institute that you're thinking about, they will have some sort of entry barrier because, they will not take anyone off the street. They need to see some base material of capability before they accept you, and then you benefit from the culture as well as contributing to it. So in this case, what you should do is, till the time that you're not able to join a gritty culture, which will mostly happen when you're younger, toil by yourself. That's sort of the way. Toil by yourself or join cultures that you do have access to. They may not be as gritty, but it's something. Join them, toil by yourself, work hard, and show the culture that you want to join that you're worthy of being included. And when you do, that is when you supercharge your development towards grit. So that is number 3, the final one. Growing grit from the outside in, just join a gritty culture. As we reach the end of the book, Duckworth talks about how character is plural, by which she means that grit is only one part of one's character. It's not everything. It's not the be-all and end-all of good character. Specifically, she talks about 3 clusters of characters. The first one being intrapersonal character traits. This includes things like grit. Grit is part of this group. But it also includes things like self-control, self-will, discipline, forbearance, perseverance. These are about self-regulation and inner strength. These qualities define your relationship with yourself and your ability to push forward. That's the first cluster of character traits of which grit is a part. But there are 2 other clusters. The second one is interpersonal character traits. So this group includes things like social intelligence, gratitude, control over one's emotions. This cluster and the character traits in this cluster focus on how you interact with others. They shape your social life and are crucial for teamwork, collaboration, and building trust. And finally, the third cluster is intellectual character traits. So these character traits are like curiosity, zest, enthusiasm, ardor, optimism, basically a desire to explore life, put very simply. And these inspire deep engagement with the world you find around you. They fuel creativity, innovation, desire to grow intellectually and emotionally, fostering lifelong learning. And Duckworth points us to these 3 clusters just to tell us that grit is important, but it's not the only thing that matters in a well-rounded person. So, in closing, what do I have to say about grit? Like I said earlier, I think it's a masterpiece. It covers all the 5 values of Sunchaser. I definitely think that everyone should read it. And more importantly, like with all books of this nature, apply the concepts to one's life. They will make a difference over the long term. To cultivate grit is hard, but I'll tell you what's even harder: to maintain it. And it takes a sort of fearlessness to get back up in the face of failure and rejection time and again, to get back at your craft, to get back at your writing desk, to get back in the gym, whatever your endeavor. Grit is not only hard to cultivate, but even harder to maintain. But when it comes to your purpose, I don't think that you would mind. Until next time, Sunchaser.